The whole core of drama is centered around what is human nature, or why people do the things they do. My name is Jason Klarwein. I'm the artistic director of the Grin and Tonic Theatre Troupe, and today we're going to be talking about the theatre of social comment, and in particular a production called April's Fool Redux by David Burton. Theatre of social comment is about telling stories that are real life, with real people, real stakes, real tension. How do we do that through the medium of theatre? Now, there's a couple of challenges to this. Didacticism, which is talking directly to an audience, or as a teacher would talk to a student. And then there's the dramatization of things. So looking at an incident that happened and then re-dramatizing it. And sometimes you see that in a documentary, say on Netflix or something. You'll see a little bit of interview and then you'll see a bit of dramatization. How do we approach these sorts of characters, and how do we get the truth inside the work while keeping the tension? Because the tension is the most important thing. The dramatic tension gives us comedy, it gives us tragedy, and it gives the audience entertainment. And actually the audience want to be entertained. That's the main thing, whether it's tragedy or comedy. And really what we're talking about is how do we get the audience to feel something, and then how do we get the audience, when they leave after seeing the performance, to think about what they felt. And then after they thought about what they felt, maybe perhaps there might be social change or some sort of individual change inside the person, because they now understand something better about human nature or human behavior. As we're telling these stories, as we're sharing and challenging, one of the things is, as Shakespeare said, the theatre a mirror which to hold up to society? Is it a reflection of who we are? Or is it, as Brecht said, a hammer with which to smash the mirror? We're not going to talk too much about the smashing of the mirror today, but we will be talking about different types of Brechtian techniques, such as episodic style, or what the structure is of the story we're either sharing or the story we want to challenge our audience with. April's Fool is the story of the Terrords family. It's particularly the story of a 19-year-old called Christian Terrords, who unfortunately passed away, and it's about how the family deals with loss. Overall, the dramatic meaning really is about there are choices that we make in life, and if we leave this earthly realm, or we leave this existence, what happens to the people that we leave behind? So how do we do this? How do we take something that's a really serious subject, that with themes that are serious, and make it entertaining? How do we keep the tension flowing? There's a couple of different ways we do that. One is by making the script itself move very quickly at certain points. So we're looking at dynamic tension, or dramatic tension, you would call it. So any kind of conflict or those things, we look at structurally to do with the text, and I'll talk about that in a second. The other thing we do is we talk about character. How do you represent someone on stage who's a real person? And do we just copy that person, or do we have our own way into the character? Do we have our own interpretation of what that person might be? These are two challenges that come up when you're making something like docudrama, verbatim theatre, or theatre of social comment. All drama, or all kind of rehearsal around a play such as this, involves belonging, because it's somebody's story. Yeah. Now, how do we take someone who owns their story and translate the ownership of the story to an audience, or to the actors that are doing it, or to another group of people who don't really know the original people? It's about ownership of story, and that's a really hard thing to do, and it actually makes verbatim theatre, or theatre of social comment, very unique. You want your audience to belong to the story as you're telling it, and you want your actors to belong to the story if you're directing it, if you're in a rehearsal room. So that belonging is very, very important. How do we empower people then to tell the story, or how do we empower an audience to receive the story? Belonging's about permission. It's about permission, who tells the story, who's allowed to tell the story. With empowerment, now we're in the action of putting the story into practice. With that empowerment comes two challenges, which we spoke about before. One is the structure of the script, and one is the characterization. So talking about the structure of the script should be dynamic. And what I mean by that is there should be scenes within the work that can move quite quickly. And that might mean that it's not just one person talking all the time, or they're monologues after monologues after monologues. You might like to break up your work, what we call fragmentation. Take little bits of text and mix it together. So there might be two monologues that you mix into one. You can make it more immediate and more powerful. That makes the story move quickly. You want the story to move quickly because there's always something about theatre of social comment. We sort of know what you're talking about or what's going to happen. With something like April's Fool Redux, we know something bad is going to happen from the beginning of the show because we're told by the characters. So we need to hold off the fact that this bad thing may not happen. And one of the ways we do that is to make the structure of the piece move very quickly. So the first half of April's Fool Redux is a very quick, fast-paced drama thriller getting to a point of somebody who's in crisis. And that's in physical crisis, and the characters around them are in mental crisis. And because they're worried about the physical crisis that the main character is having. Then what happens is there's a time in the verbatim piece where we can sit back a little and we can hear people's responses to that crisis. And then there's a sort of section right at the end, which is really what you'd call a third act or an epilogue or something, where the audience get the finalizing of the story, but they also get a slight message of hope. And there's a bit of symbol in the, if you know your elements of drama, there's a bit of symbol in that, what I call a retina burn. A retina burn is something that you watch and it burns into the back of your eye where your retina is. It's something in theatre that's really, really good. And if you think about theatre that you really like or you remember really well, that's because of the retina burn. And that's that thing I was talking about at the beginning about feeling, thinking, then change. Very, very important. That's good. Now we're talking about character. So we're playing these real people. How are we supposed to play these real people? Because, let's face it, theatre is pretending, right? But we've got to have real motivations and real conflicts that we're talking about because we are challenging ourselves about the human condition, and we've got to honour the people who originally owned the story. So one of the things to do with character is that it's not just about chucking a hat on and going, oh, well now I'm this person, or putting a stethoscope around someone's neck and saying, well now I'm a doctor and I'm talking to you. Each human being is contradictory. We are contradictory in our nature. Really good plays are about the contradiction of human behaviour. So inside characters, if a doctor is talking to a relative of a patient, say, like in April's Fool, that doctor is delivering information. Now that information is quite straightforward. They're facts or guesses, or there's nothing dramatic in that information. How do we make this dramatic? Well, what we need to do is it's about opposition. So all tension is about opposition. It's about this feeling and this feeling coming up against each other, and it makes tension inside the actor, and it makes the actor have presence. So as the doctor is saying these things confidently, because the doctor wants to talk confidently because that's their role. Oh, we've got this under control, here's what we know. But at the same time, there might be, inside the doctor, there might be vulnerability, because that doctor is in a situation that maybe they've not been in before, you could decide. So they're telling someone pretty serious details about this physical crisis that's happening, but at the same time, that might be the first time they've had to do this as a doctor. That means we've got two things. We've got someone trying to be confident and deliver security to another character, or empower another character, but at the same time we've got this undercurrent of a character which is breaking. So he's vulnerable at the same time. That contradiction is why things like verbatim theatre, docudrama, theatre of social comment work. And it's how dramatic tension helps us as an audience get through these kind of moments. So once we've done this belonging and the empowerment, we're now at what we call ownership. Who owns the story? Well, now the actors do, because they've got permission to do this. They also own it because they've worked on the internal feelings of the real people. They've also dealt with the script. So we've made the script be dynamic. It's got lots of lovely kind of pauses in it, but it's also got moments where it moves very, very quickly, even though the material might be quite factual, but it's still moving quickly. So we've empowered the actors. Now, how do we empower the audience? You get to a point with that audience where they now can see those internal contradictions in characters. They believe those characters because they are contradictory, but also the roller coaster ride of the play is particularly hard hitting. And so as that audience leaves, they're now thinking about retina burns, symbol, tension. They may not know those words, but they're the things they're going to walk away with. And now that audience owns that story. They own it because it came from one group of people. That group of people gave permission for another group of people to tell that story. That group of people own that story. Then they told that story, and now it goes to an audience who now own the story as well. This is the power of theatre. It's very different to streaming or cinema and other mediums like books, because it's an immediate effect, and that is the power of theatre, of social comment.